Welcome! In ECOintention we use for the balancing an aerial map, a floor plan of a house from a free ecosystem. And with this so-called resonator, you can connect with your product remotely, wherever you are on this planet. And you can perceive information about the state of the art, but you can also send energy and information. Well, how can you explain this? How can you understand this? Well, a good way to understand this is using the theory of morphic fields by Rupert Sheldrake. And Rupert Sheldrake is an English biologist already working since the middle 80s with his theory on morphic fields. And he's a very good scientist, so his theory is really, well, now has a lot of backup by scientific proof. But still, it was still a very difficult story for me to tell. But nowadays, you find the application not only in ECOintention of a theory, but also in the family constellations and company constellations introduced by Bert Hellinger. And many people have experience with this. And although Bert Hellinger knows about the work of Sheldrake and said, well, the fields I am using are different, I must say I don't really think he's using another kind of field. We can all really bring it together to morphic fields. And it would be thinking an advantage of the people working with the constellation doing this, because there's a lot of scientific backup for this whole theory of morphic fields. It also makes it easier for you to talk about the family constellations for many skeptical people. Well, back to Sheldrake. Well, as a biologist, one of his main problems is how can you understand the form, the shape of a body? How does each cell in your body knows what to do? Because you have about 50 trillion cells, and each second I don't know how many are dying, how many new ones are produced. How do they know? They communicate a little bit with their neighbors, but this is still one of the secrets, and call it miracles in biology. But also when you study a large ecosystem, or when you study the bees or a pile of ants, there's so many organisms. How do they communicate with each other? How do they know what to do? There is not a kind of normal scientific explanation for this. And there comes the whole theory of morphic field. And Sheldrake says that each organism, each organization, each system is connected with a field. He calls it a morphic field, which contains information, call it scripts, which helps the system how to develop. And it helps into the future development, but it also stores experience. It's like a kind of memory. The memory is not in the body. The body is more like a transmitter receiving, connecting with the field and uploading and downloading information. And the body, the genes, are more providing the building blocks. And the morphic field is like the plan from the architect telling the building blocks how to get shape, where to put them. This is more about the morphic fields. And each cell, each particle has its own morphic field. And such a unit is called a holon. It's a self-organizing whole, like a cell is a self-organizing whole. But the cells are organized in tissues. That's a larger holon. And the tissues are organized in organs. And the organs are organized in organisms, the organisms in ecosystem, and so on and so on. Each time there's a larger complexity, and each time there's another level in the morphic field, having the scripts for this holon how to get organized. And those holons are organized in a holarchy. And here you can see an example of such a holarchy. You can see like a circle or like a wheel, like we see later when we connect it with ECOintention. There are circles in circles, wheels in wheels. And here the cells are the smallest particles, the smallest holons being red. The tissues are the larger level being orange. The organs being red, yellow and further on and so on. This is a holarchy. But a holarchy you can also picture as a triangle. As a triangle with the bottom up. So the point is down and there you find the lowest complexity, the cells. The next level is the tissues and so on and so on. So the higher they get, the more complex it gets. It's like perhaps even a kind of bookshelf. On each shelf there are the books, the scripts for this whole on this level, how to get organized. So we go higher and higher. And this is in contrary to the hierarchy we all know with the top down. And you already see that cooperation is essential in a holarchy because otherwise this bottom up triangle will collapse and will get to the surface. Well, let's get into some examples now about the morphic fields. And one of the most known examples are the Bluetits in early World War and the late 30s in England opening milk bottles. This behavior was suddenly spread all over England and nobody could even understand it. How could this happen? Because they are not communicating with each other between the cities. How does it happen? And to the great astonishment, after the Second World War, there was for a while there were no milk bottles in the English homes in the front of the porch. The behavior was again in whole England, but also in Germany, or not in Germany, that was not there, they didn't have the milk, in Holland and in Belgium. Well, this is caused by a morphic field, what Sheldon explains. The behavior, the trick of opening a milk bottle was stored in the morphic field and all the Bluetits were resonating, that's the word, resonating with the field and perceiving this energy and having the information how to open the milk bottle. And the more Bluetits are doing this, the stronger this imprint get, this blueprint, and suddenly it will change into a behavior. But this behavior will also overcome time. He calls it the presence of the past. So when for a while there are no milk bottles and suddenly they appear again, then in a way the Bluetits remember how to open this because this attractor, this information is in their field. They also did a lot of experiments with rats there to learn to find the exit of a labyrinth. They got a ward and they found this faster and faster. You can explain this. But what was not explainable, that the same rats, not the same rat, but the same species, in another country in the USA, and the experiment was done, I think, in Scotland or in the UK, could also have the fastest time of finding the exit. How could they have learned this? Because there was no connection. You can only explain this by the morphic field. So the behavior is stored in the field and each organism taps into the field by his morphic resonance. And morphic resonance is there when there is the same form, the same shape. So the more equal, the more similar an organisms are, the more better they resonate with this morphic field. All Bluetits are similar, they all resonate with the morphic field. And Sheldrake also describes this behavior like the geode, a geode. You can see like a little ball running from a hill. Or it's even better when you walk through a field, nobody has been there before. The first walk will create a small path and people tend to take the path afterwards and the path will get deeper and deeper and finally it will be a habit to walk this path, although it has not been there before. So old habits are not a kind of laws, but they are stored information, stored path, tracks in a morphic field. And when you are on this track, you also are able to step out of it. And this is what we also use in the whole work of Bert Hellinger. Now let's get back to ECOintention. So here you have a holarchy. And it doesn't matter how many wheels are there inside, it can be 4 or 5, I choose 4, but it's easier to connect it with the wheel in the ECOintention. Because we have the wheel, and we will talk more about this in later clips, but in the wheel we also will see that the consciousness, which is also connected with a company, with the animal, whatever, concentrates in the pivot of the wheel. But each circle is a smaller wheel, so the cells have the cell consciousness, the tissues have, and the organs. And all these consciousness are accumulating in a larger consciousness. In fact, the spokes of the wheels are the communication channels. And when you translate this Hology circle to the triangle, you can see this. Then you see the triangle with a kind of spoke in the middle. It means even your spine in your body where all the consciousness and it accumulates in a higher consciousness of the whole. So interestingly, you see this triangle and also with this higher consciousness. So each morphic field is also connected with the consciousness of the organism or the system. Now to get in another application, because we started with using, aerial plans or photographs to connect remotely. Well, now you see that each house, each system has its own morphic fields containing all the information, whatever happened on the place, but also all the scripts and information how for development, like in a forest. The forest learned how to grow and it stored all this information into this morphic field. And it's inspiring, it's connecting and giving this information into the system. But morphic resonance is based on similarity. So also a floor plan or an aerial photograph is similar with the 4D reality. It's only 2D, but it's such a unique shape and picture that's also resonating with the morphic field. So in this way you can understand why also a picture resonates with the morphic field. And you only don't need a picture, but also when you go into your relaxed concentration, over your intuitive part of your mind, which is mostly concentrated in the right part of your brain, you can also connect when you visualize, when you have an inner image, you can connect by morphic resonance with the field. So each person has telepathy and can connect remotely with your loved ones or even and to perceive what is happening there. So this is the last picture. So over your intuition you can connect with the morphic field wherever it is, with your home. These fields are everywhere. That's another conclusion of this theory. All morphic fields from all animals, all organisms, all systems on planet Earth are present in your room at this moment. Isn't that an incredible thought? And you can connect with them, with all those books, with information, when you have the right resonator, the right picture or the right address. You can read them and you can scan them. And perhaps it also needs a kind of ethics not to do this. So over your intuition you can connect and you can perceive information or you can send information. A kind of meaning to the field, what you wish to it. And we also discovered over the heart you can connect with this 0-point energy field or send life energy. That can also be done remotely. And the two of them, life force energy and information, generates a formative force. And is one of the primal forces in creation and the one we are working with ECOintention. But there I will tell you more about in another clip. Thank you for watching.